Africa is supposed to be borderless. We're not supposed to see all these lines that cross over, and it's not supposed to cost us a lot more to travel across Africa than it costs for us to travel back to Europe or back and forth.
Eddie Kadi is one of the UK's most successful African comedians. From hosting university events to appearing at British comedy shows, his decision was clear from early. Instead of pursuing a career in the UK or America, he chose to live the African dream. Following through, Eddie has travelled across the continent, entertaining, empowering and making people laugh, while proudly representing Africa's charm and culture wherever he goes. His journey, migrating from the Democratic Republic of Congo to the UK at the age of 8, all the way to hosting at one of Africa's biggest festivals, Afronation, has equipped him with the knowledge, experience and wisdom he shares with us during this conversation. In this interview, we talk about Africa's strengthening relationship to its diaspora and the beauty and challenges behind this powerful reunion.
I think there was a few types of people. Those who came back earlier, like let's say pre 2010 or 2012, when things started to look a bit more attractive, right? Either their parents brought them back, so they didn't necessarily want to come back, and it's just like you come out with your parents and all they see is everything through their parents' eyes and nothing for them to really get excited about, right? So then they go back and say, I don't want to come back, okay? And then there are those who came back by themselves. And I was one of those really early. And it was because of my career. The first time I came back to Africa after I had left as a child was 2006. And I was in Nigeria, and it was because of work. And I came to do a short film. So I was around young people who were vibrant, who were in the arts, who were in the entertainment industry. So they exposed me to a different type of Nigeria. Maybe if I'd gone back with my parents or friends' parents, I would see a different Nigeria, and I fell in love with it straight away. I knew there was space for me because I was shown what was possible, right? And being an African who always represented Africa freely, like, it was a very comfortable position for me to be in. I was like, I can really be myself here. I don't have to think about it twice. And there's a whole heap of people who are doing things that I'm doing, that in the mainstream, I have to work, in the UK, I have to work hard to get to the mainstream, where these guys here are mainstream. Everything they do is a reflection of their audience, and their audience looks just like them, so they fit in straight away. That's how I felt. And I was like, imagine this is just Nigeria. What must it be like if I go Congo, or if I go to East Africa or South Africa? It must be the same. That's what got me excited. So straight away, I already knew that I needed to be coming back. So before even going back to Congo, I'd been to Ghana as well. So coming back to Ghana was like, wow. You know, like, this is exciting as well. It's the same thing, it's the same feeling. The young people again. So I always had access to those pockets. This is way before anything became really cool and accessible to a lot of Africans, because most Africans were going back to their own countries because of their families. So nobody was really thinking, oh, let's all go to Ghana, and I'm from Zimbabwe, or I'm from Gambia, or I'm from Sierra Leone. The Sierra Leone will go to Sierra Leone. I was a Congolese who was going to Nigeria, to Ghana, so I knew that it worked for me. So by the time I'd gone to Congo, I was like, man, and that, you know, that's really early. So when the flood came, I was already comfortable. You know, I didn't come back to Africa like a lot of people did. I came back willingly, and my career took me here, so it was a natural transition. Growing up as an African, I think my parents, even though we're young, still had those African expectations, yeah? So there was those conversations always happened. I left young, you have a great opportunity here, education is free or almost free, and you can become anything you want to become. So you better become those 4 categories of doctor, lawyer, you know, engineer, or whatever. And I think for me, my eyes were open to the opportunities. I was around people who, like, were thinking about other things, becoming other things. I went to university, and I was part of the African Caribbean Society, and I found myself in the middle of it, you know, spokesperson, president, conducting meetings and enjoying it, making people laugh, and then putting together a showcase, hosting it, and people were laughing some more, and I really loved it. And it came from a place of love. I didn't overthink about, oh, I want to become this, or, you know, my parents are putting me under pressure. I just ran with it. It made me happy. It was therapeutic. I had an identity, a sense of belonging, so I pursued it. And my parents weren't happy about it at the beginning. They were totally confused. They were worried, you know, but it's also to do with foresight. It's to do with education. as far as they're concerned, the only way to earn money, good money, and earn respect is those job titles, academic job titles. So I guess new generations are supposed to teach older generations of new things. We're meant to be like iPhones. iPhone 7 will teach, will teach the iPhone 6, maybe a bit more vision. The iPhone 8 comes in and has more flash, and and it's thinner, it's easier to carry. iPhone 10 will come in and you can get clearer pictures, and I think that's what we are. We are supposed to be advanced versions of our parents, And I think what I did was break the mold, and I was able to show my parents that comedy can open more doors than anything you've ever imagined. I think my advice for young Africans who are trying to pursue, a career outside the norm and come from a very reserved background is pursue it. Pursue it. You're your own person. I'm not out here trying to create rebel leaders, but what I'm saying is that people will only believe in you if you believe in yourself. If people say you have to become this and become that, you conform to it, so be it. But if you truly believe in your heart that this is not what you're supposed to do, then that's a calling that you have. And your job is to change people's mindset. You might be the person to break the mold in your family, And I think it's very important that if it's in your heart, you should pursue it. You should really go for it, and don't let anybody stop you. Because your parents are always going to love you, And they'll love you even more if you change their perception. They'll love you even more if you break the mold and if you become something that they never imagined that you become. So everybody's got a purpose to fulfill. Sometimes parents never fulfill their purpose, and it really gets to them. And sometimes they want to live their purpose through their children. So it's like, I never made that as a doctor, so my child must become a doctor. And a lot of the time that becomes an obsession. So you have to pursue your own career. Read about the people who've done it before you. Ask around for advice. Take one step at a time. For example, a stand-up comedian, I always say, get on stage, open mic, open your mouth and go for it. You don't always have to sit at home and start writing and say, well, I think this is funny and not, or try in front of friends. Throw yourself in the pot. See if you burn or not. And if you do burn, see if you survive. Anyone can be funny. I know people funnier than me, naturally. They're funny, but you put them on stage, they freeze. Stand-up is about conviction. It's about courage. Like finding yourself, having stories to tell and believing in those stories. Like the audience always knows when you're nervous. If you get on stage and you're nervous, the audience feels you and they wash their hands off. They're like, because they rely on you. They want you to carry them. If they can't rely on you, you've lost them. If you lose them the first 30 seconds, it's going to become difficult. So stand-up is about conviction. It's about performing. It's about practicing non-stop. I know stand-up comedians now who are killing it. When they first started, they were dying, but they kept coming back because they loved it for real, for real. And then I know people who are naturally funny. They make me laugh all the time. You put them in front of any audience, you give them the mic, they run them out, they freeze, they become a totally different person. So, yeah, man, nothing has changed. What has changed is the diasporan influence. People were getting on with lives, people were building. Because not everyone who remained when our parents left were poor. Not every country had crazy war. I definitely know that Ghana, they had moments, they had political uprisings, stuff like that. And a lot of people escaped because of what was going on ground. I don't know if it was heavy war, like maybe what may have happened in Congo, Liberia, and those places. So, but what was happening there, people were building. When I was in Nigeria, there were people that you could see were coming back and testing the waters as well. There were those who settled. There were those who had the privilege. Their parents were settled there, had money, had a good life. They went off for education or live abroad, and they were coming back young, So I met all those people here, and it was pretty peaceful, it was pretty calm. Around certain countries were unsettling because, were not settled because there was, there were war, they had internal issues. But not every country had that. So I guess the music industry, entertainment industry, banking sector, all those things were already in development. But the only difference was it wasn't a big number of diasporans who were coming back. There were people who were coming back and forth. But to settle, there weren't a lot that were doing it. And then when that finally happened, further down now, especially right now, you can see all the different sectors are growing quickly, even the property industry, banking sector, the medicine industry. Everything is growing extra fast because young diasporans who have studied abroad are now like, my skill sets are a lot more valuable bringing them back home. And they're not just going back to their home births, the countries of their parents and stuff, they're going to different countries, because we've all been able to mix and understand each other and understand the cultures more, so we can go anywhere across Africa. And that's how it should be. Africa is supposed to be borderless. We're not supposed to see all these lines that cross over, and it's not supposed to cost us a lot more to travel across Africa than it costs for us to travel back to Europe or back and forth. You know, so those things, those problems are being solved now. So now you're getting parties, you're getting DJs, promoters, event coordinators, massive weddings. Those are important too. There has to be a balance. I truly believe that Africa needs the diasporans, and I believe the diasporans need Africa. The reason being, our parents took us abroad so we can learn and acquire some skill sets and come back to Africa and build a better African than they left. You know, people will come back and be like, the service is not great. Oh, the transport is not great. Oh, the roads need help. Oh, the people are so different. Every time you feel an itch of an issue, that means it's your job to fix it. You have the skill set. You've seen better, right? So you know definitely to do better. If we spend our energy actually using the skill set that we have, bringing it back home, which is of more value, then we will advance Africa a lot more. And the motherland is there for us. It's there for us to nurture. I don't believe in borders, like I said before. I believe that you should be able to go to every African country and apply your skill sets freely, you know. So we have to constantly stop looking down on the motherland, and I think those on ground as well have to stop thinking those that are coming back, the diasporans, are just here to kind of just vomit their privilege all over us. If we all work together and, you know, the ones here kind of give us insight into what the problems are, then we can use our skill sets to also help and come together. Their weakness and, you know, can be applied and worked out by our strength. And, you know, our weakness can be applied and worked out by their strength. And that's how we're supposed to work together. In the UK, there was a moment where Eastern Europeans came in and everyone panicked. These guys are coming in, they're fantastic builders, they build faster, and they ask for cheaper fees, yeah? And everyone panicked. Oh my God, these people are going to take our jobs. And what started to happen is people were being questioned. If these people don't do it, who will do the job? And a lot of people weren't prepared to do the job that these people were able to do. And that happens all over the world. The biggest difference here is that those guys were coming from Eastern Europe into the UK, they weren't coming back, you know? But we are coming back. We belong here as much as those who are here. We didn't ask to leave, but we were given better opportunities, and our heart belongs here. And I think it's all about access. You come with more money, you have more access, right? You come with more knowledge, you have more access. You're coming from a different place. I don't blame the locals if they feel intimidated or they feel that people are coming here and just sprinkling their privilege all over. Because if you're used to your space and doing things a certain way, and people come back, and it's not everybody who are disrespectful. It's not everybody who are ignorant. Some people do come back with principles and do understand that there's locals here, they have principles, they're our siblings, they're our relatives, and we have to treat them a certain way. We have to be fair. You know, if I go to the market and they charge me 10 CDs Ghana instead of one, it's because they realize that, well, locals have to also be able to afford it. You can afford the 10 CDs, and we have to find an exchange in order to invest back in. But at the same time, the locals also have to understand that some people are trying to kind of ease their way back in. That goes back to me saying our weakness may be their strength, our strength may be their weakness. And the fact of the matter is, you have to understand, help your brothers and sisters ease back in. But those who are coming back also have to understand that don't come in and just think you have access to everything and you have this privilege and nothing else matters. Be aware of where you're treading. Don't step on toes, you know? But it's all about education. I think that's what's extremely important. We have principles as Africans. Just because we went abroad, it doesn't mean that we lost how we're supposed to speak to one another. You know, that's very important. We didn't lose our language. We didn't lose the sense of culture. All we have to do is apply that back here and we'll be okay. How do we make a black person African again? I understand that question. First of all, is to have the understanding that we are all Africans. We are all siblings who are all around the world and have been brought up in different cultures in different parts of the world, so we've acquired different ways and different standards and different principles. But the fact of the matter is, history is there for everybody to see. We can't pretend that it didn't start here and then it ended up all over the world. I think it's voluntary. I think you have to meet people where they're at. Don't assume that what you know, everybody else knows. Open doors. You know, if I go to Jamaica now, I would like to think that they will accept me with open doors and teach me about their culture, and there'll be more of an understanding. But I also know that there are people in Jamaica who still speak Yoruba, who still speak Twi. So it's not like it's far-fetched. you know, because some cultures still remain there. But when you're in a new land, you get creative, you know, you get on autopilot, you try to settle down. So I think one thing we do have to understand that education is key. Empathy is extremely important. Understanding people from where they are, not trying to judge them. This is a great start. This year of return has been fantastic. People have been coming back home. People have been coming back home for years. These are not the first few people who have settled all over Africa. So in order to, for example, allow this landing to be easier for an African American is to first of all say, we understand where you come from, we understand your bereavement, we understand your pain, this is your home. History says so. You're going to do your DNA test to say, you know, that makes you feel a lot more a sense of belonging, then do what you got to do. We're here to facilitate. 6 hours away from the UK is a lot easier than, you know, a 20-hour round trip for those who are in America who don't have direct grandparents they can come back to or who don't speak a direct language. It is our job to make them feel a sense of belonging here. We have to start from somewhere, from a point of empathy first, which is extremely important, which is why for me, you know, the organization I co-founded, Pan-Afro-Link, it's all about that. It's all about meeting people where they are and understanding that everybody's different, but we are all siblings from the same mother, and our motherland is Africa. I think the one thing we all have in common when you go across Africa is culture. We're embedded in culture. We really are proud. When you go to different African countries, you know, there is this sense of kingship. You know, there is this sense of history. There is this sense of, this is how we do things here. You know, we don't need help from anywhere else. They don't have that feeling of, we need help from outside. Oh, we need people to come and relieve our debt. We need people to come and teach us how to do things. Centuries and centuries and centuries over, people have been practicing different ways to do things. They had their own way of technology. They had their own way of community. They had their own way of education. And they still apply that. And that's applied in ways with so much happiness, you know? And people always make you feel like you're home, always. Because you're just another black person. You're just another man. You're just another woman. Whether you're in Johannesburg, or you're in Kampala, or you're in Mombasa, or Kinshasa, or Douala, you know, in Lagos, like literally, you settle in and you're just another brother, man. You're just another sister. And that piece of culture, that piece of belonging where you say certain things or you make a sound effect like, you know, we all have those wherever you go across. And I think I always identify that as soon as I land. As soon as you land, you feel it. As soon as you land, you see how people are acting. You just know, I know these are my people. I just know these are my people. And you can't take that away from us. You cannot. My call for actions for all Africans in the diaspora is don't overthink it. Home is where the heart belongs. There is space. Come home. Come and build. You know, come and ask questions. You don't have to come and settle straight away. But it's not for everybody to come home. You can be home where you're at. Create your little Africa where you're at. But just always feel that you don't have to conform in order to feel accepted or feel like you have a space. You are already accepted because you are who you are. You are African. And Africa is the biggest part of the world. Africa is the biggest chunk of the world. Africa is the biggest influencer. So you are already a big part. You're already an influencer. So just take it in. All the things that you grew up watching with your parents, all the songs that you sang, all the different aspects of your language, take that and that is you and teach the world because they are definitely in need of it. I believe we've been taught that navigating across Africa is so different to navigating across the world. The person who's in the UK is so fast to go to Thailand, Bali, the exotic places. You know, they're ready to say, Mom, Dad, I'm going on a year-round trip. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to start in Singapore. I'm just going to make it happen. And you put your rucksack on and it's very cool and you come back a year later, you look fantastic and you're ready to take over the world. But that thought isn't applied to Africa because you believe the media when they said that if you go to Somalia, you'll be kidnapped. They believe the media when they say if you go to Nigeria, you'll be kidnapped. If you go to Congo, you will not find your way around. It's exactly the same thing. You can come to Africa and connect across borders and go to all these different countries. You can take domestic flights. I remember being in Kenya and going from Nairobi to Nanyuke to Mombasa to Kisumu. There was no difference. And it's the same way if I'm in Kinshasa, I can go to Lubumbashi, I can go to Matadi, I can go to Mbandaka. It's the same thing if I'm in Lagos, I can go to Port Harcourt, I can go to Imo State and then come back to Lagos and then go to Jos. You know, if I'm in Ghana, I can go to Takoradi and then move right across to the Volta region and come back to Accra and feel like, you know what, I want to go to Kumasi. It's the same thing, but we have this belief that it's such a crazy adventure, some crocodile will stop you on the plane and now you can't make it. We need to stop that mentality. If we're brave enough to go across South America on a trek, why can't we do that to Africa? Especially the fact that you're in Africa and you belong here. I was born in Congo. There's a massive difference if you're born somewhere. My first 8 years is very memorable. I had no qualms. When we left, the civil war maybe started, the unsettlement, the unrest started kicking off. But I have fond memories of being in Africa. I don't know the Africans that they talk about in the news. I believe that there's war everywhere and the media paints wars. And I remember one day I saw an image of white people having a great time in a waterfall in my country. But in the news, they were saying, don't go there. I said, that doesn't make no sense. So wait, as people are shooting, they're actually having a nice bath in the waterfalls. Something's not right. And then I realized it's a lie. War is war. But the media is there for propaganda. It serves the person that wants to benefit from it the most. So I started realizing that very early. And then I realized, man, wait, it's like 2005, the same kid with the fly on the nose in 1996 hasn't grown up, the fly is still on the nose, it's the same commercial. Surely something is wrong here. And we're raising so much money, but yet the problem is still not really, where does this money go? So you have to find out for yourself. And parents have to encourage their kids, or adults, or older brothers and siblings, have to encourage their kids to find out for themselves. I'm currently raising a black child, and the one thing I think that's important is language. My child must understand my language. That's the foundation, that's the base, that's their strength, that's their instrument. That's one thing nobody can take away from them. Many of my friends, Ghanaian, Nigerian, not so Congolese because we came later on, when their parents were raising them in the 80s, the teachers would say, your child is speaking in a language that we don't understand. Can you start speaking to them in English? And they will fall back and be like, okay, sorry. Yes, and they stopped speaking to their children in English because they wanted their children to fit in. Where the answer should have been, my child is more powerful than you. My child has a whole tribe, a whole world they belong to. You speak one language, my child will speak 3 or 4. If you want to speak to them in English, speak to them in English. They will eventually catch up, but they will not lose their identity. And I think that's what I want for my child. I want my child to be able to feel proud being African. And let them come home, bring them, show them around, let them be settled from early. Because your children acquire the most things when they're young, when they're extremely young. So let them have that. And always check on your child when they come back from school. What did you learn today? What did the teacher say to you? Oh, the teacher said, in Africa there's so much poverty, we have to raise money. No. You then tell them what the real Africa is all about. You know, instill those principles, whether it be from church, whether it be from home, play African music. Make sure they learn how to cook the meal, not just eat it, learn how to cook it. I struggle cooking Congolese food, and I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be able to cook Congolese food because no one will cook it better than my mother. If I try, I kill myself, you know? And I feel like I do want to learn, for sure, but the memories of my mother being able to raise me with that hand is fantastic. And I think our principles are the best principles in the world. I'm not putting down other principles in other countries, they apply to those they apply to. But for us, they're the best in the world.